I'm Claudia Catania, and you're listening to Playing on Air.
Hi, I'm Scott Edsett.
I'm Stephen Boyer.
I'm April Mathis.
I don't know about you, but I've never been more grateful for art and for the people who make it.
That's why I'm taking a minute to ask for your help.
Donations to Playing on Air from listeners like you.
And you.
And you.
And yes, you. Keep our mics live.
And right now, your support can do something really essential.
It can keep artists employed.
So, if you're enjoying our season so far and you're in a position to help,
please make a donation to Playing on Air to help us and our artists get back to work.
Visit playingonair.org/donate to give online.
playingonair.org/donate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And on with the show.
You're about to hear Fake News by Pulitzer Prize winner Doug Wright, playwright of I Am My Own Wife and the haunting Wildwood Park. You're catching a particularly exciting episode for us because it's not only a brand new world premiere, but it's also the first release from Playing on Air and Axe-Houghton Foundation's Wordsmith Duo commissions. Wordsmith Duo is a multi-year initiative to put extraordinary playwrights in conversation around themes, or in this case, stories that intrigue them. From there, the playwrights write 2 independent short plays that together build a full world. Returning listeners will know that our plays are usually self-contained, but not today. Fake News is part 1 of a 2-part thriller that continues next Sunday with Rajiv Joseph's Clean Slate. Both plays are directed by Broadway's Mark Brokaw of How I Learned to Drive and star Obie winners Eisa Davis and Jeremy Shamos. Fake News also features Tony winner Katie Finneran and Tony nominee Stephen Boyer playing, well, you'll see. And with no more ado, Fake News. It's the top of the hour in a radio newsroom.
Welcome to the KLWP News Hour. I'm Bob Tunley.
And I'm Fran Mercer. In international news, world leaders were shocked and perplexed today when statements from the White House differed sharply from long-standing U.S. policy.
The medium is the message. All media exists to invest our lives with artificial perceptions and arbitrary values. The more computers record about each one of us, the less we exist.
But the Secretary of State offered no further context and refused to offer the United Nations an apology in the wake of the president's remarks. In response, the Secretary General proposed that in the future...
And a point of view can be a dangerous thing when substituted for insight and understanding.
Until the next meeting of the General Assembly. Bob?
Thanks, Fran. In an ominous move not sanctioned by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the president ordered 3 Navy warships to the Persian...
Armenian. Kardashian, it's an Armenian name. I'm obsessed with laser hair removal. Arms, bikini, legs, underarms. My entire body is hairless. So many young girls look up to me. It's why I strive to be mine.
And endangering American troops currently stationed there.
$300 billion worth of Chinese imports will be hit with tariffs of up to 30% in a surprise move that rocked global financial...
The Kumbh Mela pilgrimage in India, when 30 million people gathered to bathe in the river's healing waters. But in the annals of human history, there has been no greater convocation, no greater crowd size than at the inauguration of United States President...
The spiral into the highest bankruptcy rate since 1929.
On the home front, the White House press secretary announced that there would be no more press briefings for the foreseeable future, ending the time-honored tradition...
Hyperbolic, maybe right now. Nazi's a big word, I agree. We shouldn't throw it around lightly, but when does it become appropriate? He's made anti-Semitic remarks. He's opened camps at the border. He's praised the efforts of white supremacists. He's ridiculed the free press. He's...
Official statements from the press office and, of course, the president's Twitter account.
Reporters did catch up with the president on the South Lawn today as he was departing for a weekend at his golf resort. When confronted with the fact that 2 years into his presidency, almost 150 top-level positions have yet to be filled, the president went on the defense.
His hands, they were so big, so strong, pressed against his mind were so tiny, like a china doll. His were so huge, so gargantuan. He could cradle me in his palm like King Kong.
Making good on his promise of smaller government.
One newscaster died yesterday, and 2 more were injured, this time at our affiliate station WNBT in Detroit. It's the 3rd time in as many weeks that journalists have found themselves under siege by members of a self-professed vigilante group called Truth Hurts.
When you think about it, it's very triggering. Dick is a phallocentric name, and Jane is obviously subservient. Me, Tarzan, you, Jane. Spot? Now, Spot is deeply problematic. It's not hard to see. A spot is a stain, an imperfection, a blot.
Hijacking the airwaves and interrupting broadcasts like this one in hopes of making the case that...
So it's no small wonder that so many older students find Huckleberry Finn and The Great Gatsby offensive when from a very early age.
But membership remains a closely guarded secret, and to date, neither local police nor the FBI have established any meaningful leads. Fran?
First, it was Alabama, then Georgia, Tennessee, then Arkansas. Now, throughout the South, laws banning abortion once a detectable human heartbeat.
Biologically alive. Brain activity can be detected at a mere 6 weeks. At 7 weeks, a child's eyes, eyelids, nose, and mouth have formed. By 22 weeks, it is circulating his or her own blood.
Seem to be experiencing some kind of technical difficulty.
Oh, yeah. We ask our listeners to bear with us. We are live, and our technicians are working to rectify the situation as quickly as we can.
Not saying it was murder, and I'm not saying that there's a cover-up, but think about it. Both things are potentially true. She was seeking the highest political office in the land. You don't think she had access to special agents, to highly placed operatives, to paid assassins, to mercenaries, and to...
From the control room... Good God. Oh, my... Good God. What?
Bob,
Who is
what?
That? Who is that? What is...
Where?
In the control... How did they get in? Security. Where the hell is security?
In the wildest group date in Bachelor history. Will Carla confront Tori B about the notorious hot tub incident? And most importantly, will Travis be able to say the words, "I love you"? Find out tonight in what promises to be the most shocking episode of the season.
Holy Christ, get under your desk.
My phone. Oh, God. Where's my phone?
Get under the desk.
My phone!
Because our job is to fight wrongdoing against the Catholic Church, issues like defamation and discrimination. It is not our job to fight wrongdoing within the Church itself. That is beyond our purview, so it would be inappropriate for me to comment on any one of the 6,000 pending lawsuits.
To our listeners out there, if you can hear me, if my voice is getting through, call 911. Now.
Who are they? We can't see their faces. They have stockings pulled. No, masks. They're wearing masks.
My question? I was just getting to my question, Madam Chairperson. But first, I want to say that this witness, this hostile witness, is playing cheap partisan politics, the likes of which I have not seen in 25 years of public service. And if you think I accord him an ounce of credibility, then you, Madam Chairperson...
They've got Frank. Our board operator, they've got Frank. Oh, my God.
Oh. No. Please, say something. Bob.
Frank Harris. Frankie was a devoted employee of the station for 17, 18 years, way before I came here. He loved parasailing. That was a girlfriend, Eva. Frank was a very good man.
An investigation into the investigation, and the investigators who conducted the investigation. Now, until that investigation is complete, our investigation, not their investigation.
Keep talking. So there's a record. There are 2 of them in the control room. They're opening the door.
They're coming through. They're coming through into the studio. They're coming toward us. They're They're armed. They're armed.
A long history of gun violence on the left. Not born of mental illness, but of radical policies advocated by wild-eyed progressives who don't represent the majority of voters on issues like abortion and illegal immigration and affirmative action.
Oh, please. No. Don't!
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God.
I hid in the supply cabinet, and through the door I could hear this popping, this rapid fire popping. And the kids were screaming, and I could hear his footsteps. I knew they were his because of the sound of his boots, his combat boots. He wore them every day to school.
I have daughters. 2 of them. Teenagers. God.
But fascism should be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power. It is a religion. The next century will be known as the century of fascism.
Those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything.
Tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will come to believe it. The lie can live only as long as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent. For the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state.
You just heard Fake News, directed by Mark Brokaw, with Eisa Davis as Fran Mercer, Jeremy Shamos as Bob Tunley, Katie Finneran as all the additional female voices, and Stephen Boyer as all the additional male voices. We'll check in with the artists in just a moment, but do not forget to join us next Sunday when the story continues with Rajiv Joseph's Clean Slate. If you haven't already, take a minute to subscribe to Playing on Air through your favorite podcasting app. You'll have Clean Slate ready and waiting as soon as it hits the feed next week. A very special thanks to the Axe-Houghton Foundation for their ongoing support of great playwrights through the Wordsmith Duo project. They are the lifeblood of Wordsmith Duo, and we're so grateful for their partnership. Can we all go around the table and just say your name and the role you played so listeners can better tie the voice to the artist?
I'm Doug Wright, and I'm the playwright.
I'm Eisa Davis, and I was reading Fran Mercer.
Hi, I'm Katie Finneran, and I play lots of different roles.
I'm Stephen Boyer, and I read a bunch of different roles.
Jeremy Shamos, I was Bob Tunley.
Mark Brokaw, the director.
Thank you so much. This play, Fake News, is the result of a commission from Axe-Houghton via Playing on Air's Wordsmith Duo series. This year's Wordsmith Duo is Doug Wright and Rajiv Joseph. Doug, without giving Rajiv's play away, can you explain how you and Rajiv went about choosing what you'd write and how the two pieces would interface?
When Rajiv and I spoke, we weren't too prescriptive regarding one another's choices. So I simply told him that I was going to write a radio play about a radio station under siege. And he said, great. And so I wrote mine first, emailed it to him, and then his play is a response to mine. So we kind of worked in tandem, handing the idea off to one another. And even I had to listen to Rajiv's play to know what happened at the conclusion of mine. So it was a fascinating experiment.
Oh, I'm glad. According to the seasoned anchorman Bob, the self-professed vigilante group called Truth Hurts seems to be behind the attack at the studio. Are they behind the particular recorded interruptions too?
Well, I think Truth Hurts is a large, many-tentacled organization, and they are able to interfere with the airwaves, and also select operatives are able to launch attacks, if you will. So I think it's a rather pervasive and disarming group.
So, based on these interruptions, what's the end game for Truth Hurts?
I think they're advocating chaos. I think they're anarchist. I think it's a kind of entropy. And I think they take the dialectic from the right and the left and even pop culture, because extreme dialectic has become increasingly like the world of advertising and promotion and fictive television. And so we're living in a world where those things have become virtually indistinguishable. And if they have any overriding ideology or point, it's about that.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy Shamos and Eisa Davis, as the newscasters, what were your first thoughts when you first examined this play? What did you make of it?
Jeremy knows exactly what I was thinking.
I know what we both thought. Well, it's a pretty terrifying thing to read, to imagine that happening. And at the same time, as we were discussing when we were recording it, it's sad that it doesn't seem that impossible. It seems very possible. So I guess the idea of having it documented on the radio is disturbing.
Yeah. I was really glad to hear the character, he's not named, that Stephen read quotes from Marshall McLuhan, because I think something that we haven't really spent enough time understanding is just what the impact of the media is on all of us, and what propaganda itself, as well as, you know, the way that we need to know what is happening. So it's like we have these two different functions that news has for us. Like, we actually do need to know what's going on. And then, of course, we're being fed a narrative that is, you know, for the state or for corporations, right? But, of course, what this fake news play, you know, both Rajiv's and Doug's, what they do is they just really question what is actual news.
Well put. Mark, you've directed film, radio, and many new plays and musicals on Broadway and beyond. Apart from being very short, how is this piece by Doug Wright like or unlike pieces you've approached in the past?
The thing that I really appreciated about the piece is the fractured quality of it and how it's put together. And that would be much harder for us to achieve in the theater than it is to achieve in the radio world. But there's something very freeing when you're doing a radio play, because it's just put together in a different way, and it's captured with the actors in a different way. So while they share everything, I think they're also very, very different in terms of how they're put together.
Mm-hmm. Doug, how did you approach this commission differently, knowing from the get-go it would be for audio storytelling?
That's a great question. I think that this time I embraced the whole idea of a radio play fairly aggressively, because even as we recorded today, the voices are an absolutely key part of this, but the editing will be too, and I'm excited to hear it when it's all done. So I really tried to embrace radio as a form, and I even found myself thinking back to the famous War of the Worlds broadcasts that caused such tumult, and I thought it would be wicked to try and approximate that with a live newscast that goes terribly awry, because that's something we hear on the radio.
Right. That was when Orson Welles said that the Martians were invading and half of America panicked. Yeah.
Right. I hope no one's calling 911 in the middle of this play. Also, I will say, though, that maybe it's because of my history with the actor Jefferson Mays and I Am My Own Wife, but I've always been fascinated and admiring of actors that truly have those transformative capabilities, whether it's physically or vocally, and can, in a word, radically change who they're portraying. And so the opportunity of writing for very accomplished voice actors was particularly appealing. And as always, you guys are able to cast actors that I never seem to be able to get for full productions of my work, but who can always give me a few hours in a sound studio. They're all such remarkable, wonderful, heavily working actors. But so it was also the opportunity just to assemble a really first-rate cast.
And speaking of voices, Katie and Stephen, you've taken on a massive challenge in this piece, creating 20-odd distinct characters in a couple of hours with only your voices to distinguish them. So beyond raw comedic genius, how did you approach that task?
Just trying to coast on raw comedic genius, really. That's it. There's no technique. I mean, we were in the booth before this started, and I was frantically bringing up accent samples from the International Dialects of English Archive and like putting them to my ear, trying to prepare myself to do Italian and German and Irish and stuff. So there is some preparation in terms of that, but on the flip side, I just watched a lot of cartoons as a kid and a lot of Looney Tunes and just,
I think you can say that Stephen and I have been building an arsenal since we were children. Whether that's what that says about our childhoods, I don't know. But the opportunity to do something like this, to have somebody say, can you open your bag and just play with us, rarely comes along. So I think we're both giddy to be here and have Doug Wright write such wonderful things. Either of us didn't know what characters we would be playing when we walked in today. So, and I was in the sound booth watching Stephen, and everyone was saying, well, maybe he can do Irish. Can he do Eastern European? I don't know. Can you do this? And to watch Stephen giddily and so fervently and confidently do these characters was just, I have a crush on him now.
It was a lot of fun.
The relish is certainly there.
It's really the joy of being asked to show off a little bit, really saying we need this and given the playground and the positive environment to do it.
I've seen theater in New York recently that assumes basic political consensus amongst the audience and slips into moments of preaching to the choir. What do you hope listeners in different regions of the country with different political leanings can take away from this play?
Well, I think regardless of your political leanings, we're in a pretty dire time, and one of the great casualties in the current political discourse is fact and its unmalleable nature. And it's an idea that's been eroded to a truly alarming degree. So debate has become meaningless because people aren't operating out of the same set of fundamental precepts. And I think it threatens democracy in the most basic and radical way. And I think to be a working writer in this cultural moment, working on something that doesn't have immediate and urgent political dimension is borderline irresponsible. And I can't say that everything I'm working on possesses that trait, but it's something I'm deeply aware of.
Yeah, I really appreciated that this piece wasn't about the right or the left. I think Doug took the poison that is out there on any side and funneled it into this group, Truth Hurts. And they aren't even trying to win somebody over to an ideology. They're just basically trying to destroy. And their goal is to dismantle, and God only knows what they want to leave behind. But I think that's the world we live in.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. Playwright Doug Wright, director Mark Brokaw, and cast Jeremy Shamos, Eisa Davis, Katie Finneran, and Stephen Boyer. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to Playing on Air, Great American Short Plays with Great American Actors. Associate producer, Michelle O'Brien. Literary manager, Bonnie Antosh. Literary assistant, Aditya Pratama. Marketing and communications manager, Shelley Horwitz. Theme and play music, Tom Cochan. Recording and sound design, John Kilgore. Audio editing, Julia Melfi. Playing on Air is distributed by PRX, Public Radio Exchange. For Playing on Air, I'm your host, Claudia Catania. Thanks for listening.